Okay, we're up to good vach to everybody. We're at the Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. And the Mishnah had said we were discussing the Isser of bringing the dam of the inside the Kodesh, the Isser of Nichnas versus the Isser of Yoitza. Yoitza means going out. Nichnas be going in. We had a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. Rabbi Akiva said the halacha applies to all blood of any carbon, and the Chachamim and the Chacham said no, only that of a chatas. The Chacham said only that of a chatas. Now you had to have in mind to go ahead and be machaper. Rabbi Eliezer was of the opinion. He was of the opinion that only if even just the thinking about the machaper you would pass the dam. Rabbi Shimon said actually you had to go ahead what and actually be machaper, and we'll see the shita of Rabbi Yehuda in a second. Okay, so the machloikis again between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer is saying you have to go ahead and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Eliezer says just the thought to be mechaper. Rabbi Shimon says the actual being mechaper. In other words, if you went in with the blood and you didn't spritz, you are not what? It's not. You don't have psul of nichnas. You don't have psul of nichnas. Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Nema kan lechaper b'kodesh. It says over here. It says over here lechaper b'kodesh. What was the pasuk? B'chol chatas sheyuva midome el oil moyed l'chaper b'kodesh. It says you shouldn't eat it. Be'esh tisaref. V'nemar lahalon, and it says later on, but the avodah of the kohen gadol in Yom Kippur, it says v'chol adam lo yiyeh b'oil moyed b'boy l'chaper b'kodesh. Right. So now we have l'chaper b'kodesh, l'chaper b'kodesh. We have a gezer shava between the act of nichnas bringing the dam in and the act of when the Kohen Gadol brings the Ketores on Yom Kippur, no one can be there. We've spoken this out many times. Afilu, the Yerushalmi says in Peah, Afilu, the Malachim weren't allowed there. Afilu, Heim Shed Pneim Doime L'Adam could not be there. No one could be there in the oil moed. No one. Even Malachim weren't allowed there. We spoke out very nicely by Bi'aked. I'm just digressing. Ata Yadati says the Malach by the Akedah, says, now I know that what you're Yiras Hashem. And so what's pshat? I didn't know beforehand. It says that Avram Avinu, when he was bringing Yitzchak, he was like a kohen gadol that was nichlas la'ilufnim. So the malachim, they weren't allowed. So Ata Yadati, now I know you were allowed to go to be here and I wasn't. Says this. That's my pshat in the Sforno. Since now I know, and now I know. Why? Because you were allowed on Haram Ri and I was not allowed. Because why? It was like the avoid of Yom Kippur, so it was geshmak as anything. Very nice pshat in the Sforno. But anyway, getting back to the job at hand. So Rabbi Eliezer learns the Kesher Shava from the actual nichnas to bringing in, as no one could be there when he goes in to be mechaper. But as of yet, he wasn't mechaper. As of yet, he was not mechaper, right? So again, he's going in to be mechaper, but as of yet, he was not mechaper. So what do you see? That you see that what? You don't need the actual kapara. Again, Rabbi Eliezer Shita, you do not need the actual kapara. Just the simple fact that you wanted to was enough. The comparison to Yom Kippur. Mala halon b'boy lechaper b'kodesh b'shaloi kiper. There, it's where he wasn't mechaper. Afkan, so too by nichnas b'shaloi kiper. That's the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. Reb Shimon Omer nemakan. Again, it says by nichnas v'chol chatas shayum midon lo emoy lechaper b'kodesh v'nemal halon b'chatas hapnimius. It says by the chatas that goes in, v'espara chatas is v'sera chatas ashachuvo es dama lechaper b'kodesh yoitzi al michutz lamachne v'sorfu bei. So it says, guys, this is the whole pasuk. This is chatas pnimius. V'helam dava or kohen Mashiach. V'espara chatas v'sera chatas ashachuvo es dama lechaper b'kodesh. What should you do? You take them out and burn them. Now, if you're burning them, so obviously you did the kapara already, guys. Means you did the service of the blood, and now it's after the fact you're burning it. So mala halon by chatas pnimius is b'shakiper, where you did the act of zrika of being mechaper. Afkan by the the regular case of the chatas chitzonius, bringing the blood in, is b'shekiper. Good. So now, comes out, Rabbi Eliezer learns from Yom Kippur, and Rabbi Shimon learns from chatas pinimius, chitzonius to pinimius. Yom Kippur is speaking about a person. It's speaking about the Kohen Gadol. Yes? Here, guys, again, Rabbi Eliezer is learning dom inside from Kohen Gadol, and Rabbi Shimon is learning from chatas pinimius. But my kamifliki, what's the svaras hamachloikas? What motivated each one to learn the Gzeir Shabbat L'Chapim B'Kodesh a different way? Why did they apply it to different places? So Sava Donin Chutz Michutz. Rabbi Eliezer says, I'm going to darshan Chutz Michutz. Rabbi Ein Donin Chutz Mivifnim. In other words, I'm going to darshan things that from the outside, the Chatas Chitzonius, and Michutz, and something that and a person that they're warned not to go ahead, b'shas they avoid it, to go inside. So in other words, stay outside, guys. Guys, I'm learning chutz michutz. Keep the blood outside. Keep the people outside. Guys, keep the blood outside. When the Kohen Gadol goes in, no one else should go in. So I'm learning outside. They done in chutz mivifnim rather than learn out from chatas chitzonius to chatas pinimius. Reb Shimon holds done in behema ain't done in behema adam. So each one had a motivation. Each one had their own motivation, right? Rabbi Eliezer did not. Rabbi Eliezer wanted to learn out chutz michutz, stay outside, keep the blood outside, keep all Adam outside. And Rabbi Shimon said, no, I'd rather learn chatas from chatas pinimius. I'd rather learn, at least it's speaking about a behema, not speaking about Adam. So that's the machloikas between the two. Now let's look back at the Mishnah. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? Let's look back at the Mishnah. What did Rabbi Yehuda say on Daf? Hey, Beis, Amid Aleph. So for the Gemara, 3 lines up. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im hikmis shoygeg, kasha, im hikmis shoygeg kasha, right? And then another din. So Rabbi Yehuda just said, in hichnis shoygeg kasha. And then we had the din of the tzitz b'maratza only on tumah. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? He just says, if you go inside b'shoygeg, it's kasha. Does he hold that you have to spitz or not? Again, he says an ambiguous state. He's a third shita. He says, if you go in b'shoygeg, the dam is kasha. It's not, you don't have a psul of nichnas. Does it speak? Is he speaking where you spritzed or you didn't spritz? We want to know, is it speaking where you spritzed or you didn't spritz? Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, in b'shoygeg is kasha. Ha mezid, but if you did it b'mezid, pasul. Good. Now, b'shekiper or shaloi kiper. When you did it b'mezid, is it speaking you spritzed like Reb Shimon or b'shaloi kiper like Reb Eliezer? So what does he hold? What does Rabbi Yehuda hold? Good. So I'm Rav Yirmiyah. Mimash b'shenemar ves parachatos ves serachatos ashahuva es doma lechaper b'kodesh. Now, ma tamid loymar, right? V'asleirif, right? The Gemara. Ma tamid loymar v'asleirif l'gufa itzrich, that you burn these kabbanis. Ela ma tamid loymar chatas chatas. Why did it just say es par v'seir? Why do you have to say chatas chatas? Lefi shloi lamadnu elu lepar b'sor sheyom kippurim shenisraf ma beis hadeshen mithamoy begodim. Guys, there's a halacha like this. On Yom Kippur, there's also chatas pinimius, the par and the seir. The person who burnt them chutz lamachne is his begodim atamei. Now we know the chatas pinimius of Helam Davar and of a Kohen Mashiach are also burnt chutz lamachne. How do you know there that the begodim are tamei? By Yom Kippur, I know they're tamei. How do I know they're tamei by those? In other words, they're all chatas pinimius. Yom Kippur, Helam Davar, Kohen Mashiach. How do I know that Kohen Mashiach what is mitame begodim like Yom Kippur? How do I know that? So says the Gemara. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Chatas chatas, that that it teaches me just like the chatas of Yom Kippur, the begodim, the guy who burns his tamei, who adin kay Mashiach and helim davar also. Rabbi Yomi ain't it sarich? It's not necessary. Hari Yomi it says ves parachatas ves serachatas shein tamid leim lechaper. Ma tamid leim lechaper limud akolim mischaprim shasorfim mitamid begodim. All mischaprim, all chatas that you burn in tamid begodim. Rabbi Yehuda, why doesn't he learn from lechaper? Why does he learn from lechaper? Guys, why not? Rabbi Yehuda, chaper le mashmalei. My timer, la mishum de miboyle gezer shava, that he needs it for the gezer shava. That Rabbi Yehuda, he needs the chaper. He can't use it to teach me anything that's mechaper to go ahead and burn and burn the begadim. And excuse me, your tamei. He can't learn it from that because he needs lechaper for the gezer shava, which is what lechaper, like Rav Shimon. Again, outside eye contact. Rabbi Eliezer says he learns what from the Kohen Gadol Ketoris Yom Kippur, just going in, even without kapara. Rabbi Shimon learns it out from lechaper, learns it out from Panemius. Good. Rabbi Yeshua says if you got Rabbi. And they don't make a chilik between shoygeg and mazid. Either way, according to them, either whether you're a shoygeg or a mazid, in their relative shitas, you will be what? The blood will be asl al snichnas. Says Rabbi Yehuda Akula, b'shoygeg yipata. B'shoygeg it's kosher, meaning the dam that you brought in b'shoygeg and you bring out, you could use it. You don't have to b'sula nichnas. Fred the Gemara, ha ben mazid, it's puzzle. Good, very good. Now, b'mezid it's puzzle. Did you go ahead and sprinkle like Rav Shimon, or no, just brought it in like Rabbi Eliezer? We're learning out since Rabbi Yehuda needed to teach me the din of tumis begodim by chatos panemius. He learned it out from words chatos, and not from Rameya's words lechaper, is because he did not have lechaper extra. You know why he didn't have the extra? Because he needed for the gezer shava lechaper. When is tuat ashahuves dama lechaper b'kodesh? He needs a lechaper to teach me what the case of nichnas. So you see, obviously lechaper, nichnas is speaking when you actually used it like Reb Shimon. Beautiful. Okay? Hadron alecha kol Zevachim shenisarvu. Hadron alecha kol Zevachim shenisarvu. Hadron alecha kol Zevachim shenisarvu. A very, very difficult perik of Taruvis. And as we go on towards the finish line, geshmor geshmaka stuff. Now the Mizbeach has a special koyach, guys. The Mizbeach is Mekadesh. Just 1 second, I want to get a pasuk, okay? In Shmois, Perich of Tes, pasuk lamed Zayin, guys. For Hoya HaMizbeach Kodesh Kedoshim, the Mizbeach is Kodesh Kedoshim. As I state, the Mizbeach is what? Is Kodesh Kedoshim. Kol Negeya b'Mizbeach Yikdosh. Anything that touches the Mizbeach comes Kodesh. Good. Throughout this Masechta, we've heard the term Olu Yardu, Im Olu Lo Yardu. What does that mean, Im Olu Lo Yardu? It means once it goes up, the Mizbeach is Makdish. It becomes Kodesh. That's the mechanism of what? Of Im Olu Lo Yardu. So it's based upon this pasuk that the Mizbeach is Kodesh Kedoshim. It's Mechaper, whatever something goes up, even if it's puzzle. Now, not all psulim are created equal. We've seen some, again, in the famous blog, some things go up and come down, right? Some things do come down, in fact, right? But some things don't. So the machloikis in the Mishnah now, at which point do we say im olu, lo yardu, or not? Okay, and we're going to see beautiful 3 shittas. We'll see Be'ez Hashem. Says the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Yeshua Aimer, Kol haroy leishim. Hamizbeach mekadesh es haroy lo. Hamizbeach is mekadesh. That's roy for it. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, Kol haroy leishim. Right? What does roy mean? So I'm touching up. Says Rabbi Yeshua, I'm going to touch up. You know what roy means? That it's roy leishim. It's roy to go on the fire. Im Allah, if it goes up, lo yarad, it stays up. Right? Shenemar, because the pasuk says. Saves Arin Vesbon of Lemar, Zois Tyrus Oila, Heal Oila, Al Maikta, al mizbeach kol halayla ad haboker veish hamizbeach tuchad boy. Rabbi Yeshua learns the following. He reads the pasuk the following way: Saves Aaron Lemar Zois Taras Oila Hia Oila Al Maikda. Al Maikda. What does Maikda mean? On the fire. It's brenzich. It's on the fire, right? Right? It's on the fire. So he says Hia Oila Al Maikda, and he stops at the word oil. He stops. He doesn't go to the next word mizbeach. Ma Oila Shehi Ru'uya Ishim. Just like an oila, we know is totally burnt, right? Im also loy seirate. If it goes up, it doesn't right. Doesn't come down. I've called Shiroy Ishim. So my dogma will be the carbon oila. That what it says al maikda, and once it's al maikda, similar to maikda, just as the oila, if it goes up, stays up. So too, anything that's roy ishim stays up. So ishim amala lo yered. Rabbi Gamliel leimer kol roy mizbeach imala lo yered. Anything shenemar, right? Listen to the way he dashes the pasuk, guys. He doesn't stop at the words of oila. He says. He oila al maikda al hamizbeach. He continues and he says al hamizbeach. So don't stop at oila. Stop at al mizbeach. Ma oila shi ru'uya lemizbeach. Im also leisered. Af kol davar shu ro'il mizbeach. Im also leisered. You hear? So in the pasuk it says al maikda. Stop. Rabbi Yeshua. No. Comes the Rabbi Gamliel says no. Let's go weiter. It says the word mizbeach. So anything that's ro'il on mizbeach. Okay. Look. Ein bein divrei Rabbi Gamliel divrei Yeshua, ela hadam v'hanesachim. Does dam go in the fire? No. Does libations go in the fire? The water or the wine? No. Like Rabbi Yeshua, it would be yered. If it comes puzzle, you'd bring it down. Like Rabbi Gamliel, since it goes on the mizbeach, you'd keep it up. Rabbi Gamliel oimel lo yardu, Rabbi Yeshua oimel yardu. Fascinating. The Mishnah is speaking like the Gemara, right? Telling you nafkaminas might be nayu, not the most common thing, right? Rabbi Shimon oimer. Rabbi Shimon says a din. Rabbi Shimon oimer. What does Rabbi Shimon say? Hazevach. If you have a korban that's kosher, unisachim that come along with it, apsulim. They became puzzle for whatever reason. You left them out overnight, they became puzzle. Or hanisachim ksherim hazevach puzzle, or afilu zevaz epsulim hazevach leyerid v'nechasim yerdu. So the carbon will stay up. The carbon will stay up, and right, and the nisachim will come down. Well, who does he hold like? Let's see the 3 lines from the bottom in Rashi. Rabbi Shimon Svirle b'nesachim shel zevach Rabbi Yeshua. He holds by nesachim like Rabbi Yeshua. Because what? Guys, nesachim don't go on the fire. Nesachim don't go on the fire. So he holds like Rabbi Yeshua. U'b'nesachim abayim b'fnei atzman k'Rabbi Gamliel. And if it's the nesachim that come by themselves like Rabbi Gamliel. Guys, you hear? Not all nesachim are created equal. Fellas, eye contact. There's 2 nesachim. There's one that comes biglal the carbon, and you could make a neder of nesachim yourself. Says Reb Shimon, there's a difference. Not all nesachim are the same. If it's nesachim that accompany the carbon, it's never going to be brought up if it gets puzzle. Why? Because he holds like Rabbi Yeshua, and nesachim don't go in the fire. On the other hand, if it's a nesach that's brought by itself, then he holds like Rabbi Gamliel, and then it becomes puzzle. If you bring it up, it would stay up. It would stay up. Why? Because it's not coming biglal the carbon. It's not accompanying the carbon. It's by itself. Okay. For lav mimoik the yalef, ela time achrina is like in Mefarish b'Gemara. We'll see a different reason. Okay. Let's just finish the Rashi's here. Let's say the nesachim went out of the azara or nitmu, they became tamei. Since the nesachim come as a result, nifslu imo, they become puzzled with the carbon. Interesting lashon, guys. Why, if the carbon's puzzled and the nesachim, why can't you bring if the kosher? Why can't you bring them up, guys? The carbon's puzzled. The nesachim are good. So why can't you bring them up? Says Rashi, since they're coming beglal the carbon, if the carbon's bottle, they then an oichet bottle. The same thing. In other words, they come very meduik the lashon, guys, right? Ubotla toiris hakarbon mehen. We mevatel the toiris carbon from the nesachim as a result of what of the carbon not being good. Good. Had now the Zevach stays up. Why? Because the Mizbeach Kotchay, the Mizbeach is Magdashit, and it's going to come down. Okay, tonight we're going to focus on basically the first two Shitas and the sources for those Shitas, okay? The sources for the Shitas. So it says the Mizbeach is Magdash Roy Eloi, according the Mishnah says, Roy Eloi in Shein Roy Eloi. Now, what is not Roy to the Mizbeach? Lemute Mai, what does it count to be Mamayit? Okay. Now, what does it mean? We have nafkamina, correct? Like Rabbi Gamliel, it's everything. It's l'chari Mamayit Nisachim and Dam, according to Rabbi Yeshua, yeah? So that's not what it means. It means which would they both agree on? Guys, Rabbi Gamliel has to say, look at me. Rabbi Gamliel said everything that goes up stays up. But it didn't say that. It said min haroyila, meaning there must be something that's not roy that Rabbi Gamliel would admit stays off. Look at Rashi, guys. Mutei mai shlei nir lemizbeach ledivrei hakol. On the line ledivrei hakol, that even Rabbi Gamliel would say it comes down. Good, guys, you hear? The Gemara's kasha is really on Rabbi Gamliel, who says everything that goes up stays up. What about this case? What about what does the roy come to Mamayit? So. Guys, now we know, let's say Korban Mincha, fellas, outside. Korban Mincha, what do? You magdish it, you magdish in your house. Let's go outside. Let's go through this, guys. I love doing this. Here you go ahead. You go in your house and you say, I'm going to bring a Korban Mincha. You take this say the Mincha, and you say, this pound of flour is Kodesh Lashem. It gets Kedushas Damim. You could be paid it. That's Kedushas Damim. You bring it to the Beis HaMikdash. You know what the Kohen does? He puts it in a Kli Shares. What happens as soon as he puts it in a Kli Shares? It gets Kedushas Hakuf. What then do you do? Guys, he does Kemitza. What is he doing then with the Kemitza? He puts it in another Kli, right? The Kemitza is the Shechita, putting in the Kli is the Kabbalah. He goes over to the Mizbeach in the south left corner, and then he goes in and burns it. Good, that's the Ilacha, and that's the Zrika. Now, what happens if he didn't put it in the Kli? What happens if he put it directly on the Mizbeach? Would it come off? If he didn't put it in the Kli, says the Gemara, Amra Papa, L'mu'ute Kamsin, a koimetz, like kitchu b'kli, that you weren't magdish in a kli. Koimetz, that you weren't magdish b'kli. Now, you'll ask me, why wasn't it kodesh already in a kli shares? It was. It doesn't make a difference. Even though it was kodesh kli shares, it's not going to make a difference, as we'll see. Maskul Ravina, Maishna Medula, why is it different than Ula? Why is this different than Ula? The Ama Ula is of the opinion. Ula is of the opinion. Emuri Kachim Kalim Shehelon Lefnei Zrikas Damim Lo Yardu Because Nasu Lach Mishal Mizbeach. Oh, guys, outside. Take a look. Look at me, please. There's something lacking if he went ahead and he took that, right? He did this, he's got this, and he didn't put it in a kli. There's a problem there. It can't be lechem of the Mizbeach yet. It's not roy to be lechem of the Mizbeach yet. In other words, it's not prepared. Now, we know Kachim Kalim is Mamin Bailim until Zrika. Once you do Zrika, it permits the Emurim to the Mizbeach. Good? So, if you bring the Emurim up before the Zrika, right, it stays up. But one second, what's the difference between the two actions? The Kemitza in the Kli comes down. The fact that lacking Zurika, it stays up. What's the difference? In both cases, you're missing an action to matter it. Yet, when it goes ahead and stays up, right, it stays by Kachim Kalim, despite the fact you didn't do the Zrika, it's staying up. Yet by Mincha, if you didn't do the action, it's coming down. As I read the Gemara. Maishna Medu'ula Dama Ula Imure Kachim Kalim Shelon, the key word, Lifnei Zurikas, Hadam, Lo Yardu, Nasu Lach Mishal Mizbeach. We'll see what that means, Lach Mishal Mizbeach. And for the Gemara, Hanich Le Mechasru Maisa Bigufayo. Hani Mechusu Maisa Bigufayo. The Gemara makes an Achroinish Chilek, guys. By the Emurim, are you going to do anything to the Emurim to matter them to the Mizbeach? The Emurim themselves. Not at all. The thing that's going to matter the Emurim to the Mizbeach is a side thing. It's the Zrika of Dam. It's a separate entity. You do the Zrika Sadam, it's going to matter the imurim to the mizbeach. Masha'en came by the kaimitz. Gufa in the kaimitz itself, you have to do the action. You have to put the kaimitz in the kli. That's why, in other words, that can't be lechma mizbeach because felt in the etzem chefza. Masha'en came the imurim. There's no difference in the object. The object is the same. It's just that you're missing a side action of zrika. By Kamitza, I have to take the actual object and put it in the kli. That's a maisa begufa in itself. If I don't do that, it's not roy to be lachmei mizbeach. The imurim, you're not doing anything to them. It's just a matter of time, before zrika, after zrika. Since you're not doing anything to the imurim, it's considered roy liyois lachmei shal mizbeach, despite the fact that you didn't do what the zrika yet. That's the difference between the two. That's the difference between the two. Now, Rabbi Yeshua said anything that's royal ishim, and Rabbi Gamliel said no. Now, how they dash in the pasuk? Rabbi Gamliel nami hakasiv oila al maikda. So now, guys, we're going to go through the usual back and forth. What does each one do with each one's limudim? Rabbi Yeshua has his limud, his limud. What does each one do with each one's limudim? That's what we're about to go ahead and explain. So Rabbi Yeshua says anything that's royal in the ishim, if it goes up in the mizbeach, it doesn't come down. Why? Because he said he oila al maikda. He said the word al maikda. For Rabbi Gamliel, right? He also says al maikda. So right? So haksiv oila al maikda. Says Ahu ladure poikim hudasa. You know what al maikda means? If you ever have your crackling meat, anything on fire, sometimes it can have juice inside, it can burst. And as a result of that, the agitation could go ahead and cause it to leave the mizbeach. So you have a big limb, and it's burning, and all of a sudden it hits a spot, and so Ken Zayin, it's going to go off the mizbeach. It's called poik again from the mizbeach. Do you put it back or not? Says Rabbi Gamliel, al moikda, that teaches me that poik again, if it comes off the mizbeach, you put it back on. The idach. Now Rabbi Yeshua, who uses al moikda to teach me what's roy for the mizbeach or not, where does he know poikda that it goes back? Laduri poikin minala. Where does he know that if it comes from the mizbeach, you got to put it back? So Nafkale, he learns it from the pasuk me'asher toichal eish. The pasuk says, "V'lavash hakoyin midai bad u'michtasei bad yesh al b'sarai v'herim es hadeshin asher toichal eish." Right, and he should go ahead and remove the deshen asher toichal ha'eish. Fellas, when it says deshen, what does it mean? It means ish, correct? Deshen means ish. Why do you have to say asher toichal ha'eish, that the fire burnt? If it's ish, of course the fire burnt it. If it's ish, of course the fire burnt it. So asher toichal ha'eish is extra. So why does Rabbi Yeshua use the word asher toichal ha'eish? Right? Even what the Eish went ahead and burnt, you got to put back. Even what the Eish burnt, you got to put back. So, Poik again, it went off the Mizbeach, was burnt, you got to put it back. Now, Rabbi Gamliel, who uses Al Moikda, what does he use that Shetoichal Eish for? V'idach, what does he use that for? Hahumi Boyle, La'akule Oila Atamachzir, V'atamachzir Akule Ketairis. Let's say you're in the Mizbeach Hazav, you're burning Ketairis, and the Ketairis jumps off, you don't have to put it back. Oil you put back, right? I should toichal eish, but only that of an oila. I should toichal eish by the oila. I should toichal eish esha oila. Masha'en came by ketairis, you don't have to put it back. That's what it uses for. Now, for example, the Tani Reb Chanina, Yumi by Reb Elazar ben Yaakov, it says I should toichal eish esha oila al mizbeach. Akuli oila tamachzer via tamachzer akuli ketairis. So that's what Rabbi Gamliel uses the asher toichal eish to tell me that you don't put back the oila, but you don't have to put back what? The ketairis. Now, if Rabbi Yeshua, he used asher toichal eish, that you go ahead and you put it back, the oila, where does he know that you don't put back the ketairis? The idach, Rabbi Yeshua, who says, right, b'machzirin, you learn from asher poikin, right? Where does he know asher poikin ketairis from? Lav memela shemamina, that kuli oila mahadrin. Guys, when it says you put back the oila, don't you automatically hear that you don't put back the ketairis? I don't need a pasuk to teach me you don't put back the ketairis. Guys, Fred the Gemara, where does Rabbi Yeshua if he uses Asher Toichala Eish to teach me a din in what you put back the oila, right? How does he know you don't put back the Ketairis? Rebbe, that's the pasuk that Rebbe Gamliel uses it for. Says Rebbe Yeshua, I don't understand. If I have a pasuk to teach me, you put back the oila, and I needed a din for oila, the svarachit soina is that what? That usually you don't put it back. Guys, the pasuk always stress this. The pasuk will always tell you, without the pasuk, why would you say, don't put it back? Yeah? The pasuk says, don't put it back. Now, when the pasuk tells me to put it back, if I don't have a pasuk telling me to put it back, I'm not going to put it back. So, when it says you put back the oila, what do I know? You put back the oila. What about Ketairis? You don't put it back. Why not? Because I don't have a pasuk to tell me to put it back. So, Mamela, I don't need Asher Toichala to teach me that. So, each one has held serve. That each one, Rabbi Yeshua from here, oila, that al moikda, and Rabbi Gamliel from anything that what goes on the mizbeach. Anything that what that goes on the mizbeach, because he said the word mizbeach and not moikda. Rabbi Gamliel said anything that's roy mizbeach, if it goes down, it stays up, because he said here oila al moikda al mizbeach. Okay, now what does Rabbi Yeshua do at the end of that pasuk, fellas? I should have put this pasuk on. I'm sorry. I should have put this pasuk out here. You know, it would have been better. Now, again, the pasuk says, "He ha'oila al maikta," and then Rabbi Yeshua stops. Rabbi Gamliel continues alam mizbeach. What does Rabbi Yeshua do with the words alam mizbeach? It's in the pasuk. What does he do with those words? Right? What does he do with those words? Alam mizbeach. What does he do with those words? Rabbi Yeshua nami yaksiv mizbeach. Hahumi boile. I need that. My ka'amar rachmana ka'aroi lemaikta mikadesh mizbeach. Fellas, I need it to fataych. Why is it? Why this is something that goes on the maikta? Why is it kodesh? Because it's on the mizbeach. In other words, what's magdish? The fact that it's in the fire, what's magdish it? It's the mizbeach. The mizbeach touches up that. In other words, I'll make the why because it's on the mizbeach. So that's why I know on the mizbeach. The idach. Now, where does Rabbi Gamliel know that the actual mizbeach is magdish? Where does he know that from? So he says mizbeach achrina. There's an other mizbeach. V'zeh asher tasa al mizbeach kivasem b'nei shana. So it says what? The words al mizbeach, right? So therefore he knows. Is that the pasuk? I want to make sure I told you the right pasuk. A different pasuk. Rashi says, "Shivas yomim techaper al mizbeach." It's Chav Tes Lamed Zayin. Shivas yomim techaper al mizbeach. So it says he has another mizbeach. In other words, he has an extra mizbeach to teach me that it's the kedusha of the mizbeach that's magdashit. So he has a separate pasuk. Now, what does Rabbi Yeshua do with that other pasuk? The idach, Mike. Where am I? The idach chad lehecha the hoisla shasa koisher v'chad lehecha the lehoisla shasa koisher. Each one, in other words, Rabbi Yeshua says some things have a shasa koisher that they were, and some things never had a shasa koisher. So, for example, the behema was roi fakrava. The behema was roi fakrava. Everything was well. It was no problem, and then it became puzzle. But at one point in time, it was roi lakrava. And what about something that never had a shasa kosher? It never was what. There was never a time where what it was right in the mizbeach. Let's say you did a zrika of pigel, fellas, a zrika of pigel. Yeah, was there ever roy to go in the mizbeach? No. What happens? You bring it up. It stays up. So I need two mizbeach. One to teach me roy law, and one to teach me afilu loy roy shas kosher, something that shas kosher. That's the din of Rabbi Yeshua. So I use the mizbeach for that. Now, Rabbi Gamliel, how does he know that? How does Rabbi Gamliel know that? Since he uses mizbeach to teach me that the mizbeach is magdashit, where does he know that from? V'idach Kivin de psulininu, since they're all puzzle, Rabbinu Rachmana, and the Rabban and the Chacham and the Chacham, the Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Rachmana tells me if it goes up, it stays up. Loishna hoisla shasa kosher, loishna loy hoisla shasa kosher. There's not going to be a difference whether it has shasa kosher or whether it did not have a shasa kosher. Okay, we're going to stop over here.